Hi, welcome and welcome back to my channel. It's been almost 3 months since I am done with two under two era, and I've been meaning to sit down and film this video for quite a while. I was editing a vlog a couple of days ago, and I remembered that I wanted to talk about having two under two because everybody's experience is so different, and I just wanted to share my experience having two under two. I wanted to film a vlog having two under two on week 2 of having two under two, but I realized that it's really impossible. At least at that time it was impossible for me to vlog showing what I do as a mom without showing my kids. It was just impossible because I always had one of my kids in my arms. So I've had two under two for almost 6 months, a little bit less than 6 months, but almost 6 months, almost half a year, which is a long time. And in those 6 months I noticed a big difference that happened in their relationship, in the way I am as a mom. But let's start from the very beginning. I think I would say the first month of having two under two is the most important thing to talk about, because after that you kind of get a hold of things, you kind of know what to do. You're already used to having two little kids. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about is adjusting to the new way of living. Everybody's talking about how difficult it is to go from having no kids to having one kid. Your whole life changes, and of course, yes, it was such a transition from having zero responsibility for other human being to having another human being to be taken care of 24/7. And when I had my second son, I already could not do whatever I wanted whenever I wanted. It was just adjusting to a new routine and figuring out that routine. If having one kid, I knew when his nap time is, and I knew when he needs to have his breakfast, his lunch, his dinner. I knew which snacks he is supposed to eat. When I had another baby, I needed to figure out when he has to sleep and what I am doing in that time with my first son, not to wake the baby up, because you don't want to do anything to wake the baby up. The first week at home, I was not alone. I was with my partner, and I mostly took care of the newborn, as you're supposed to do. I was taking care of the newborn. I was changing diapers, breastfeeding. Luckily, my recovery after C-section was, I can say, an easy one. I could move from one room to another. I even went on a walk, I think on week 1, I'm not sure, but I shared it in my C-section recovery video. And the first week, I can say, was really easy because I have someone to take care of my toddler and also of me. Having someone who would cook you food and bring you water, bring you food is so crucial for the first week of adjusting. I think that also impacted the speed of my recovery. I was just focusing on figuring out my new baby's routines, and I can say that in the first week I noticed his sleep patterns. When he wanted to sleep, I saw his sleepy cues, and I think everybody who has a second baby has to dedicate at least 1 week, first week, to learning your baby and to seeing those sleepy cues, hunger cues, because babies have similar sleepy cues and hunger cues, but they might be different in your first baby and the second baby. And then the second week came. Even though I knew when to put him to bed, when to nurse him, still I was alone, and I also had to take care of my toddler. And the thing that I did not do in the first week, because my partner was taking care of the toddler and playing with him outside or in another room, I now had to figure out how to keep my toddler away from the room where the baby is sleeping, because he, of course, was curious it was also an adjustment for him, and you need to remember that it's also an adjustment for your first child. Sometimes he did not understand why I left to another room and closed the door, even though in the first week of having another baby at home he did not care, and now all of a sudden he started caring and expressing his big feelings. And I had to teach him that we have another baby at home. I was trying to explain that the baby wants to sleep, the baby is really tired, and that's why mommy has to go to another room, to another dark room, to put the baby down for a nap. Luckily, I did not have to spend that much time putting my second baby to sleep, and I could be back to my toddler in no time. Also, I'm really happy that nowadays we have baby monitors, because I could put a baby monitor in the room where he was playing and I could see him while putting my second baby to sleep. With all that said, I was really overwhelmed because newborns nurse a lot and sleep a lot. They sleep often, they nurse often. And I remember the first morning when I was alone with two kids. I had to cook breakfast for my toddler, for myself. The baby was crying because he wanted to nurse, and I felt so overwhelmed. While the breakfast was cooking, I was nursing, and then I was holding the baby, burping him while continuing to cook the breakfast. I sat my toddler down to have breakfast, was trying to brew coffee while holding my newborn because he still needed to burp. After breakfast, I already had to go and put my baby to sleep. I wanted to spend some time with my toddler because I did not spend that much time the very first thing in the morning, and I think he was also kind of confused why we did not play as much as before. So it's all an adjustment, and you basically need to figure out what to do and when to do it. Okay, I ended up having only 15 minutes to set up the equipment and start filming instead of an hour, but I'm back and I managed to put both of the kids to bed for nap time at the same time, which doesn't happen every day. So I'm really glad that both of them have their middle of the day nap at the same time. I'm not sure how long each of them is gonna sleep, so I'll start filming now. I'll start talking now. Another thing that is related to adjusting is you really need to understand that you will have less free time just for yourself than before. And even though I understood that with my brain, I knew that having a second baby means more things to do, more responsibility, and less time for myself. For example, when I had one kid and he was 1 year old plus, I knew that he would go to bed at a certain time and sleep through the night, and I knew when he was gonna wake up in the morning. So if I wanted to have more time for myself, I could set up an alarm and wake up at 4 a.m., at 5 a.m., and have a couple hours before my son would wake up. And then I knew that he would take a nap in the middle of the day, a longer nap, 1 to 2 hours, sometimes even 2.5 hours on days when we walked a lot and when it was raining, because I think it was even darker in the room, and maybe the white noise, the natural white noise from the rain was calming him, so he was sleeping even more. And I knew that I would have that time in the middle of the day, I would have a break, and then I knew that in the evening when we put him down for his bedtime, he would sleep without waking up in 30 minutes, in an hour, in 2 hours, and I knew that I could relax in that time. Now, having a second baby, a second kid, a baby, you never know when the baby is gonna wake up. You can put the baby down for bedtime, and in 30 minutes he will wake up, and you will need to go back and try to figure out what to do either to nurse him again or to rock him again. You will just need to figure out what to do because you need the baby to sleep. And that means that you can't fully relax in the evening. You will always have the baby monitor turned on. You will not be able to focus 100% on some task that you're doing just for yourself. And then in the middle of the day, you might not even get a break. Only rarely I will get a break in the middle of the day if I'm home alone. If I'm not home alone, if my partner is home, of course I get breaks, but it's only on the weekends. Or if my relatives can come and babysit, of course I can get a break, but again, it's not like they can come every day to babysit. And honestly, I would not want them to babysit every day because these are my kids, and I of course want to spend a lot of time with them. Every time when I leave to go, this is so funny, I always say that I want to have a break in the middle of the day, a 30-minute break, an hour break. I need a break to just unwind. And then whenever I go shopping, for example, on the weekend or in the end of the day, I would immediately start missing my kids, and I will come back home and hug them and be so sad that I left them, as if they're not having the best time of their lives when I am away. With all that said, if you don't have relatives or friends who can babysit, and if your partner works irregular hours or 6 days a week, 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, which I experienced and probably will experience again soon, which I'm not excited for. But if you don't have other people to help you with the kids, you will not have a break. You will almost never have a break, and that is tough. You just need to be mentally prepared for that. And I'm saying that you need to be prepared, but it's really hard to be prepared. I didn't know how tough it is when nobody can help you and your partner works a lot. And I lived through that for the first several months of having two under two. The things that helped me were not doing anything household related or baby related. If both of them were asleep, I would just do something just for myself, even if it's 10 minutes, 10 minutes dedicated to myself. Then in the end of the day, when they are down for the bedtime, again, I was not cleaning up the kitchen, I was not preparing food, I was not doing anything household related. I was just focusing on the little things that I needed to do. Next, you need to have a safe space for the baby. So remember how when you had your first child, you needed to have a bassinet for him or her to sleep in, and then you needed to have some place on the floor for them to play. You could leave the newborn in the middle of your bed. Well, when you have a toddler, you need to have a safe space in the bathroom because you will need to take your newborn with you in the bathroom. You need to have a safe space in the kitchen, in the living room, because you can't leave a newborn with a toddler alone. Or, I could not even leave the newborn on the floor in the living room because, toddlers, they are wild. They're running around, throwing things, and it's really not safe to leave a newborn on the floor when you have a toddler running around. Again, I know everybody's situation is different, and maybe your child does not run around and throw things. Most likely he does. So several safe places where you can put a newborn, several containers. First of all, a bassinet, of course. Next, you can put him in a basket. I bought a basket with a little mattress, and I could put it on the floor in the kitchen or in the bathroom, and I could carry him in this basket. Another thing where I could put him in was a Baby Bjorn bouncer. You can get any bouncer. We have a Baby Bjorn bouncer, and I liked it. The only thing you can't put the bouncer in the middle of the living room where the toddler is running, because I noticed that sometimes he would lean on the bouncer, and I was worried that it can break and he will fall down with the newborn on the floor, which is of course not safe. There is a weight limit on the bouncer and it can easily break if a toddler is pushing on the bouncer. But you can put it next to you, for example, again in the kitchen, or you can leave it in the bathroom. If you need to go to use a bathroom, you will have a place where you can put your newborn. The next thing that I wanted to discuss is toys. So when I had my first son, I bought plastic toys but also wooden toys, and I now kind of regret having wooden toys, not because I don't like them. I actually love those Lovevery toys and some other, I think we have Kiwiko. So we have different wooden toys and they're so heavy. They are really good quality. I love those toys, but they are heavy. And if your toddler is throwing things around, you just need to hide all of the wooden toys. And yes, I know you should teach your kids not to throw things, but when they're babies, when they're under 2, they're still learning and sometimes they are throwing things. I'm explaining that he can throw balls, but he can throw other toys. It takes time. And the only time when I brought those wooden toys was the time when I was physically sitting there with the kids playing with the toys. I did not leave them alone with the wooden toys. Another topic that I kind of touched on, but I want to talk about it a little bit more. So on those days when you will be alone with 2 kids, you need to have ways to look after your toddler when you're away in another room. For example, I mentioned you need to bring a baby monitor to the living room or to that room where he is playing to be able to see that he's safe when you're putting your newborn down for a nap. So baby monitors are really helpful in that case. Another thing that you need to think about is having everything baby proofed, because when you're away in another room, you need to make sure that your toddler will not open any cupboards that he's not supposed to open, that he's not gonna open the doors and leave. That's really important. That's really scary. I had nightmares that my child opened the door and left. He was running away from the door and I saw him running away. That was scary. So what we did is we installed an additional lock on the door at the very top. It doesn't look that good, but it's safe, and on both of the doors we have those locks on the very top and he can't reach them. He would not be able to open them because toddlers are really smart, and he, for example, figured out how to open the front door. That's why we had to get additional locks that he can't reach. Even if he brings a chair, he cannot reach that lock, and that's what you need to do if you have a toddler. Before I had my second son, I watched vlogs and videos about having 2 under 2 because I wanted to kind of have an idea of what my day will look like. And again, I know that everybody's days will be different, and now I wanted to tell you what my day looked like. I don't have a vlog because I could not vlog having my kids around, but I think I can explain you just step by step what my day looked like. So when I had my second son, I woke up 2 to 3, sometimes 4 times a night, as far as I remember. So of course it affected the way I felt, my sleep. Even though I slept a good amount of time, still it was interrupted. So I did not wake up at 4 or at 5. I would wake up at around 6 when my newborn woke up to nurse. I would nurse him, and then some days I would go back to sleep if he would fall asleep. If my first son was still asleep, I would continue sleeping until one of them or both of them would wake up. And then, for example, at around 7, my newborn was still asleep and my toddler woke up. So I went to pick him up, brought him some water, changed him from his pajamas into his daytime outfit of the day. Even though I was still wearing my pajamas, I would change him into his nicer clothes and then go to the kitchen, start breakfast. My newborn would wake up at around that time and we'll do tummy time, and then I would nurse him and continue cooking breakfast, feed my newborn, wash everything as much as I can. Sometime around breakfast or after breakfast, I would go wash my face and apply a scar healing patch that I had for my C-section. Then I would put my baby down for a nap, spend some time with my toddler, play, read a book, and do some household things like wiping the desk or folding the laundry. Then the baby would wake up, I would nurse the baby again. Then it would be the time for my toddler to have lunch, and I would try to have lunch at the same time, but sometimes I could not because I would be doing something with the baby, either bathing from a poopy diaper or nursing or burping. So it's a lot of holding your newborn, which of course you're supposed to do. You're supposed to hold your newborn a lot. Then I would put my first son down for his nap and spend some time with the baby, try to roll him, do a little bit more tummy time, nurse him again, put him down for a nap, maybe have 10 to 15 to 20 minutes of a break to finish eating my lunch before the toddler wakes up. We'll go on a walk in the backyard. I did not risk going on longer walks right after C-section because I knew how fast my toddler could run and I could not run. So we played in the backyard. I would come home to grab some snacks for my toddler, and around that time my baby would wake up and I would bring him outside to nurse him there, and I usually brought a Baby Bjorn bouncer there for him to just sit outside, breathe fresh air. So we would spend some time outdoors. Then it would be time for the baby's next nap, and I would usually bring him inside for the naps because it was way too hot. He was born in July and it was so hot outside that he had to sleep indoors. We would come home and play with my toddler during the baby's nap. Then my partner would come home and we'll spend some time together, have dinner, and put all of the kids down for their bedtime. And these were the first several weeks while I was not doing that much around the house, while I was recovering. So whenever the baby was asleep, I would spend more time just playing or doing simple things with my toddler. On some days we would fold laundry, on some days we would wipe the windows. After that, when I recovered and I think my baby was around 2.5 months, I could start doing more around the house with my toddler. We started vacuuming together. I started cooking more. So what I did was I would put my baby on the floor, and by that time my toddler kind of got used to having another kid at home, and he would come to him and try to start playing. He would bring a toy and put it right in front of the baby. So it was safer for me to put them both on the play mat in the living room while I was in the kitchen cooking. Our kitchen and living room are the same room, so I was cooking and looking after them at the same time. And yeah, not much changed since that routine that I just told you about. It's just I recovered and I could do more, and I tried doing all of the things around the house when both of the kids were awake. I still do the same thing. I think one of the things that you need to understand when you have a second baby is that your first baby is still a baby. He's under 2. Even if he's a little bit older, he's still a baby. He wants your attention and he wants to spend time with you, to play with you. He might feel jealous if you spend way too much time and attention, pay too much attention to the baby. What I was doing was, first of all, involving him in all of the things that I did with the baby. Second of all, I would sometimes tell to the baby to wait. That's one of the advice that I heard before I had my second child, to tell not only to tell toddler to wait until you do something for the baby, but also to tell the baby when you need to do something for the toddler. Sometimes I, for example, asked him to bring a diaper from another room, and he knew where the diapers for the baby were, so he was running to bring those diapers. Kids just love to be involved in everything that adults do. One more thing that is really important, and I just remembered that if you did not meal prep in advance and did not put any food in the freezer before you had your first kid, I did not do that and I now regret it. Anyways, if you did not do that when you had your first kid, you have to do it before having your second kid, because you would need to cook for yourself, you would need to nurse your baby or prep bottles and clean up the bottles, and you would need to feed your toddler. If your toddler and you eat different foods, you need to prep food for your toddler. Probably you need to prep some snacks for your toddler because for example, I don't buy snacks at the stores. I cook all of the snacks. So what you need to do is meal prep in advance, put a lot of food in the freezer for those first several weeks when you will be adjusting. And if you won't have anybody who would be able to cook for you every other day, then definitely meal prep. Maybe have, instead of having a baby shower, have a meal prep party, or have both, but definitely have a meal prep party with your friends, with your relatives, so that you had a lot of different meals stacked in the freezer. I think this video is gonna be so long. I was rambling for so long, but there is so much that I wanted to tell you, and probably I forgot about some things that I wanted to tell. I was going to turn off the camera and then I came closer and I saw my face. Yes, I am so pink because I turn off the AC when I'm filming and it's so hot, but I did not realize that I am that pink. Well, that's gonna be it. I really do hope that the video is not an hour or 2 hours long. Thank you so much for watching it till the end, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!